Hello everyone, today's lesson will be easy because we are going to talk about bash outputs. When I say bash output, I mean standard output and standard error, or std error or out. So let's dive right into. First of all, it's important to know, because we already talked in the last lesson, and a standard input, a standard output, and a standard error. Once you handle a standard output and a standard error, the only difference between them is a standard output is you use the standard output flow to show information. That doesn't matter if a warning, log information, maybe it could be an error, but if you have an error or your program is not doing something well, the idea is use a standard error, because maybe you can use different flows or different channels to try to emit different kind of scenarios possible. I don't know, maybe if one operation was successful, or maybe there are some hints, or maybe something to improve, or debug, or error. Well, there's a lot, but once you use bash, there's only two: one for errors and the other one for whatever you want. So here we have my prompt, or my Debian terminal. Remember that I am using Windows Subsystem for Linux. That's the reason why you see the the Windows interface, but you see Linux just right there. So don't worry about it. First of all, I'm going to show you how to use a standard output or a standard error and a standard error in already exist programs. For example, ls, cat, and more. First of all, let's see what happened once I type ls-l. As you can see, we have a list of the different system folders, because currently I am in the root root path or root direction. So let's create file where we are going to save this content, because it's a maybe you are asking why, but believe me that is very common. Use one command output to send that information maybe to a file or another command. So let's start with this basic example. So ls-l, and if you use the greater than operator, that means you are going to send the standard output to one file. Well, yeah, one file. Because if you want to use this output to another command, you have to use this pipe just right there. But I'm going to show you this in the following episode, so don't worry about it. In this lesson, we are going to cover this and the other way to use errors. So don't worry, believe in me. And just type the file where you want to save the command output. In my case, I don't know, file.txt. So if I clear my terminal and used this one, as you can see, well, it looks like the command, but this is not the command. This is the file content that saves the ls output. So what is the other one? But remember, maybe I want to show you another difference, because if you see an error, for example, let's try to use, I don't know, cat and type file.txt, but this file already exists, so let's try to use a file that doesn't exist, like file1.txt. And as you can see, we have this message. Maybe thanks to my basic terminal configuration, you see the standard output and the standard error with the same color, because it's like something plain. I would like to just improve this styling, but doesn't matter at all. But believe in me that once I tell you this is an error and this is a normal output, that's enough. So let's continue with this. What happened if I don't know, try to copy, inside quotation mark, copy the file.txt content to another file, but there's an error between the operation. I don't know. For example, let's try to order.txt, but instead of use, well, let's see if this command works in the standard way. So let's see order.txt, and as you can see, we have the same result because the cat file.txt is the same result as you can see. But what happened if I try to, I don't know, maybe if I am wrong with the file name and I call this file like file1.txt. As you can see, there's something wrong, or where, because it's supposed to redirect the command output to the file. But as you can see, the command output looks like an error instead the content itself, but the content itself doesn't exist because the file doesn't exist. That's pretty obvious. But let's see what happened inside the order.txt. So order.txt, and as you can see, there's nothing. And why? Because I already told you, greater than alone, just greater than character, is for a standard output, but not for a standard error. What happens if you want to see a standard error? To see a standard error is pretty simple, and you only need the number 2 character. I'm going to show you, well, I'm going to explain to you why 2. Why 10 or 12 or 100? Why 2? What it should be 2? Don't worry. But let's try to execute this command again using the 2 behind the greater than character. Execute this file, and as you can see, we are no longer seeing the error as the last time. And let's see what happened once we see the order.txt file. So order.txt file, and as you can see, we have the error because we send the standard error to the order.txt. But what happened if I try to filter or send the file content or the command content through the standard error pipe? Well, looks like pipe because it's like something that you send into something, inside something, and and works like a filter because you only need the standard error. But let's see what happens. For example, let's try with the file with the file that exists and send the content. So let's see order.txt, and as you can see, this is normal. But what happens if I change this operator and tell to the output A, I only need the errors inside this command execution? If there is no errors, there won't be content in the order.txt file. So let's execute this. And maybe if you are using your brain enough, don't worry, you can predict the behavior after this command. I invite you to try to see what happened. What happened? Not in the sense the content will be direct to the order.txt. No, I try to tell you what happened once I press enter. A few seconds. Let's go. What's happened? And as you can see, maybe you see a lot of the ls output, but I execute catfile.txt to greater than order.txt, and we see the standard output information. Because remember, if you send the error as a pipe to a file, but the command also has a standard output, the other kind of information that is not error. As you can see, this information will be this information will show in the user terminal in this case, and inside the other .txt file will be saved the errors behind that command execution. In this case will be no errors because we only execute cat with a file that exists. But this is interesting because it's like if you send the standard error to a specific file, you are continue to see the standard output, but in your terminal, because you don't send that. It's like, hey, this command execution has two flows, the standard output and the standard error. If you use only greater than, you are sending the standard output to the file. But what happened with the standard error? The standard error will be show you in your terminal if you don't specify where to send it. In the other hand, if you specify the standard error but not specify the standard output, well, the standard output will be show you in the terminal, because you don't specify where to send the standard output. That's the reason why we are watching the standard output and the standard error is safe inside the file. But what happens if you don't care if you have a standard error or a standard output? You need all the information inside this specific file. So don't worry, we have two ways to do this. The first one is using after. You can use this one in this order. First of all, breathe it down like a standard output, but at the end use the standard error character and ampersand 1. You are trying to tell to the system, hey, I need that you send also the standard error information to the first source. In this case, other.txt. Of course, you can avoid this and use another file, another. I don't know the difference, but I don't care. You understand what I'm telling you. In this case, in this file will be saved the standard output, and in this file will be saved the standard error. But what happens if I want to save the standard error and the standard output in the same file? Don't worry. Ampersand 1. Maybe let's try to execute the command into context with the file that exists and in a file that doesn't exist. Let's see. As you can see, we don't have nothing. In the case our command has a standard output information and a standard error, both of them will be saved inside other.txt, and in our terminal we are not going to see nothing. For example, let's see cat other. As you can see, all is working. But also, if I don't know, specify run the file name and execute this, as you can see, we don't have the error message, but neither we have the output message, because both will be saved, or well, has been saved inside the other.txt. And if we see other.txt, and as you can see, we have the file1.txt, no such file or directory. So that's pretty nice. But maybe this could be a little extensive, and you can use another one that is pretty easy to remember, and is just using the ampersand behind the greater than. Ampersand indicates both output and a standard error. So if you execute this again, we are going to see the same behavior as the last one. Let's see cat cat other.txt, no such file or directory, and if the file name is correct, as you can see, we have the same result, other.txt. So that's pretty nice. Maybe okay, I'm going to show you why we have one or two. Okay, I almost forgot this one. And we have in Bash, we have numbers to specify, or descriptors that allows to specify the streams, flow, whatever. In this case, for example, the standard input use the descriptor 0. The standard output use the descriptor 1, and the standard error use the descriptor 2. But you don't see the descriptor 1. Why? Because once you use the greater than, implicitly you are using 1, that means standard output. But also you can include 1 in this way, as you can include 2 to refer a standard error. Also you can include 1 to refer to standard output, and it's the same result, but maybe it's just like a shortcut. It's just 1 character, but it's something that exists, so don't worry. It's not only 2 for the standard error and nothing for the standard output. No, you also can specify 1 explicitly, but without 1 also works. So as you can see, if we go to order, we have the same result. So I think this is enough for this lesson. In the next episode, I'm going to show you how to create a bash script that use both a standard output and a standard error. So that means, for example, if you are creating a bash script that maybe needs the user standard input, and I don't know, you need the 2 numbers, but the user include their name and a second parameter, they include a number, it's obviously that you can assume a string with a number. So in that specific scenario, you need to include an message error as a standard error, and in that way, as a standard itself, the programmer in another place of the world, once he executes our program, he can use the 2 stream to save the error message. So in that specific scenario, that user will be the user will see the message error. For example, you can sum a string with a number, and in other scenario where all is working at all, I don't know, the user specify one number and another number, so the result, it will be something like the result of the operation was A plus B equals 10. I don't know, but that's the reason why we need to use a standard output and a standard error to handle the command output, and also how to handle in our own programs specific streams, like, hey, if the app flow goes through this specific case, will be show a message error using a standard error. But if the program is working fine, you can use a standard output to show information like, hey, the program is working at all, the name variable is equal Chris, 1 plus 1 is equal 2, or something like that. So I hope this video was helpful, and see you in the next time. Bye bye.